Welcome to Our Future is Kind, a podcast exploring how we build the future we want to live in, one kind act at a time. I'm your host, Michael G. Neece, president of Our Future is Kind, and your trusted companion as we search out kindness strategies we can use in our everyday lives. Together, as we chase the idea of building a kinder future, we will interview experts in kindness, team building, human motivation, corporate culture building, relationships, plus politicians, artists, and those with a vision for a healthy and kind future, one we all want to live in and deserve to enjoy together. In addition to interviews, we will consider positive depictions of humanity's future in art, literature, the movies, and media. And we will issue kindness challenges each week, give an update about Our Future is Kind, the company, and what it's doing to stay true to its mission. So, let's dive in. Stick around after this episode to hear a great announcement about today's guest and the Human Summit. Enjoy the episode. Linda Cohen is the kindness catalyst. She's an international keynote speaker, trainer, and consultant, and for over a decade she has championed kindness as a strategic force, transforming the way businesses and organizations measure success. I'm so glad to welcome you to the show, Linda.
Thank you. So happy to be with you, Michael.
I just gave a brief introduction of you, but I want you to tell our audience what makes you you.
Ooh, what makes you you? Aren't we all our own yous? Let's see.
Yeah.
I grew up in a rural place in Vermont and live out here on the West Coast now in Oregon, and I have two grown children in their 20s. I loved being with them when they were littles, and I was a stay-at-home mom. And about 13 years ago, started my speaking business around this idea of kindness. Initially, it was a personal journey after my father passed away to perform acts of kindness in his memory, or mitzvahs was the word I used. And eventually it became a platform to really talk to businesses and organizations around kindness in the workplace and how elevating a culture of kindness can really be beneficial both to the employees, mental health wise, but also to the bottom line of the organization. So that's the space I've been in now for more than a decade. And I know we're going to talk about how has that been. So I'll wait and hold off to answer any more of those questions.
Well, let's dive straight into it. I mean, you have been focused on spreading ripples of kindness throughout communities, throughout society as a whole, but also on a smaller scale. Can you talk to us a little bit about what are the offerings that you have? What do you see as your purpose in doing what you do?
You keep asking such big questions. My goodness. Let's see. I feel like I fell into this a little bit. I don't know that I realized when I took on that it was a mitzvah project to do 1,000 mitzvahs in my father's memory. Started as a blog. I recorded a TED Talk. I wrote my first book after 2.5 years of taking on that project. But those were all little tastes of what it looked like to day to day look for opportunities for ways you could be kind. Once I started speaking about it, I began to learn the science of kindness and the physical and health benefits of actually living in that space. And I feel like now my work is to help invite other people to join me, to be kindness catalysts. And I will tell you, and I know this is one of the questions we're going to talk about, so let's just dive in, is what's changed in the 10 years since I've been doing this work, or more than a decade now. Yeah. And what I will say is at the time I started this, I kind of felt like a lone wolf. I felt kind of lonely. I remember being at my national speakers conference probably in about 2016 saying, I speak about kindness in the workplace, and kind of getting pushback from other speakers like, who's going to hire you? Why is that important? I don't understand. And at the time, I really didn't necessarily know myself who was going to be interested in my topic. I just knew it was important. And I will say now in 2025, I have an entire group of people surrounding me who are I have a group I met through LinkedIn. We're all women in business working in this kindness space. We meet monthly. We're global. And we're growing every single month. Somebody invites somebody new to be part of our monthly conversations. And that has felt very exciting to realize that while maybe globally, the conversation in media and social media doesn't feel like we're living in a world where people are kind. What I'm seeing is that more and more people want this as the paradigm. And so more people are talking about it, which I also think means that leaders are talking about it. And, of course, I've heard over the years, isn't kindness a weakness? I mean, I could say if I got a quarter for every time somebody has told me that, and of course I don't believe that. I believe that an authentic, kind, human-to-human connected person who leads a team is going to get the response that they really want. And in fact, yesterday I was on a webinar, and I know this is going to air months from now, but let's just say in April, I heard a webinar by the Greater Good Science Center. And if your listeners are not following their work, Greater Good Science Center, Berkeley, California, they have incredible research that talks about so many important things. But in April, the podcast was about kindness in the workplace with a CEO who's running his organization that way, with 2 researchers who had been studying pro-social behavior. So, of course, I logged in and I'm taking a bunch of notes because the research is now getting more and more prevalent. And so I feel like that's a piece for me as someone who says, well, kindness is a soft skill. Now I've got more and more books, research, doctors, social, professors who are talking about this as well.
Yeah, the research definitely has been catching up in the last few years. I think especially one of the things that I'm always pointing to is the Google's Project Aristotle, where they were looking at how groups form and what are the big factors in their success or lack thereof. And of course, the biggest factor being psychological safety. And you can't get to psychological safety if there's not a lot of kindness within that team. Is that something else that you also talk to different clients about?
Not as much about safety, psychological safety. We talk about communication. We talk about different ways you could elevate it. We talk about, you asked me my programs that I have. I'm a keynote speaker, so I offer keynotes at conferences and for, organizations or team meetings. I also have created an entire training curriculum for emerging leaders. So I have twice a year an opportunity for emerging leaders to come together from various professions. It's multi-profession, which has been kind of exciting. And that's really diving into some of those ways. How do I lead with kindness? How do I amplify and elevate kindness in my own team and in my workspace? And I also have a kindness initiative or kindness intensive package that I created as clients started asking me, what else can you give to our teams? What else? So bite-sized kindness. I've created a curriculum on hiring and onboarding with kindness. So I've tried to amplify what I know is important and how we start these processes so that we have retention. So we're able to recruit talent. So so that we have a reputation in our organizations that we do have a kind organization. And one of the things I heard from that CEO, in that podcast many months ago was about how he was asked by a stakeholder, what kind of turn did he have in his organization? And he, at that point, didn't have a lot of turn because he had created an organization that was really led with kindness, where every employee felt like they were nourished and part of the team. And he was leading with kindness and not, I know I'm way up here and you're all down at a bottom level of an organization. He was really holding people. And actually, Herb Kelleher, I think, Southwest Airlines, he's no longer alive, but he was in my book, The Economy of Kindness book, because I heard after he died that he had also led in that same way. And people at Southwest, when he passed away, Southwest Airlines, really felt like they had lost a grandfather because they had to give him extra time when he would land in hub cities and he would need to talk to everybody. How's your kid and what's going on with your family? And so people really felt like he was not just the CEO of the organization, but this, amazing leader for all of them. And they had very, very low turnover for an airline organization in those days. So.
Yeah, his reputation was that he would remember people's names and their family members' names. And,
right.
Yeah,
and that's a superpower. That is a superpower if you are a leader who can do that. But maybe you have notes. Who knows? I mean, maybe you're going to go to Atlanta and you look up in your little phone the names of people. I mean, it's not impossible to help trigger yourself to be able to do those good things,
Right, for sure. You brought up your book, and I really want to hear a little bit more about that, because if somebody really wants to hear you speak, but they don't have the opportunity to do that anytime soon, and tell us about what's in the book.
The Economy of Kindness book is my second book, and I wrote it in 2021. So quite in the middle of the pandemic. And it really was an opportunity for me. It's hard once you've written a book, how much work goes into it. And I was like, oh, do I want to write another book? But I felt like it was time, because at that point I had been in audiences and heard so many stories about leaders that I wanted to have in the book. So the book is short chapters, and I talk about, leading with kindness, reputation, recruitment, retention, autonomy, communicating with kindness. It's a lot of great stories that I had heard over the years, stories that I felt could inspire someone in the future. And I know this podcast is the future of kindness. My last chapter is called The Future of Kindness. So that was kind of exciting when I knew I was going to be on your podcast to take a look back at what I had envisioned in my perfect world, what a future might look like. And we can hold off. I'm sure you want to end with that question, but
Right. Yeah, no, I'm excited to get there with you.
Yeah.
In the meantime, though, the big thing that you and I are both involved in is this human summit, which is coming up on World Kindness Day. Can you tell me just a little bit about what is the summit, or why are you excited about being part of the board of advisors on this? Just tell me what attracted you to that.
Well, you were kind of the one who reached out to me, Michael, and invited me to be part of that. So I think just learning again that I have never felt the drive to take on a gigantic push for kindness in that big way. And I've always hoped that there would be a way and a platform for a lot of us to come together who have like-minded feelings about how we can tip the scale in terms of leading with kindness, in terms of building the world we really want, in terms of making more noise in this space that we really want in terms of humanity. So I think being asked to do that felt like the perfect opportunity to share with like-minded people. And World Kindness Day, of course, is, it's a holiday that we've always, as probably kindness speakers, I've always written about it. I've always talked about it. I've always tried to be on something that was happening for that day. So to be asked to be part of it before it happens was really exciting for me.
Well, you were just one of the most logical people to invite to our board of advisors, just because with your deep background and your deep network also of other kindness speakers and coaches and authors.
And I hope lots of us will be on there. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. I can't wait to shape all the rest of that up with you. So let's talk a little bit about the future of kindness, because it is the focus for this. And I know that our audience is, probably chomping at the bit to hear a little bit about it. Can you tell me, if we were to step into a time machine, go 100 years into the future, step out, assuming that we've done all the right things, right? We've listened to each other, and we've included all of the right voices and all of that. What would you be looking around at society to confirm that we did all the right things?
I mean, in my book, I talk about the idea that a future of kindness to me looks like kindergarten. It looks like where we laugh with each other, we play with each other, we hug each other, we see each other as human beings. We don't necessarily see each other's differences. We see each other as a full person, and we just want to be together. And I feel like that's what I envision. And I tend to be a little bit of a silly, childlike person myself, whimsical. I bought bubbles after my kids both went off to high school, because I missed, chalk and bubbles on a spring night. And I feel like I started roller skating this year for the first time in 25 years. And it's just as much fun as it was when I was a 12-year-old. So I feel like that is the world, singing, dancing, playing together. I feel like for me, 100 years in the future, if we were able to have that and more joy, that would feel like we have tipped the scale, that because we all get just one life. I mean, in 100 years, none of us will be here. This is it. We get this one little experience of life. Why are we spending so much time as human beings hurting each other, fighting with each other, killing each other? Like, it makes me kind of crazy as a human being that's the choice that we are making. And I don't think a lot of us want that choice. I think a lot of us really want to enjoy this experience and not feel anxious and stressed and worried. And so I think that's what I want in the future. That feels like we love each other. We're not going to fight over some of these things that are human caused. I mean, it's hard enough that we have Mother Nature. Now, I feel like maybe Mother Nature's giving us some signs that, she's pretty unhappy with what we're doing to our earth. And so perhaps humans, we could take those signs and be like, hey, we don't necessarily want to live that way. So, and I think in the book, I also write that I'm a little Pollyanna. People have told me I'm a little Pollyanna-ish, and I'm okay with that because I think that's the vision that I'd like other people to join me on, is the Pollyanna version of what's possible.
Well, you say Pollyanna, I say it's simply a target. I mean, the whole idea that we're going to reach a future that we've never discussed, that we've never thought about, we've never defined, makes no sense to me. And so the whole idea that you think it through and you want there to be a sense of playfulness and childlike wonder and us embracing each other and loving each other's differences, I think all of that makes a lot of sense to me. The whole idea that we're working on this kind of big group project, there's no rubric for it, we don't know what we're creating, that is disturbing to me. So the whole idea of let's establish this target, I think it's essential. Otherwise, we'll never hit the target if there isn't one, right? Yeah, so getting to that, though, right, we've done all the right things. What are those right things? What should we be doing in the meantime to get us to 2125 and that wonderful future that you just described?
I think we demand that media starts sharing more good news. We make choices with our financial abilities to not support things that don't sit right with us. We ask and we say, I think we have conversations and we have to be curious about each other. We have to decide that I'm not going to have a whole opinion about someone before I even talk to them. So I think part of it is starting to say, could we have a different paradigm? The paradigm that we've had up until now doesn't necessarily seem like it's been working. Perhaps it's not as equitable. Perhaps it's not as we've lived into a consumerism society for sure right now. And so, and I think there's going to be pushback. And, every time I go and speak at an audience, I hear something, and somebody recently told me about a history that cycles. I haven't found the book. I didn't follow up with her about the name of the book, but every year there's a turning in 4 cycles in every generation. Maybe even about this. We'll have to look into this to see what it is. But, we were talking about the fact that, that maybe this younger generation than my kids' generation may be pushing back to some of the things that they see, unaffordability. I can't live my life without, having a job the way you all did. And I don't want that. I don't want to have to work 80 hours, and so maybe I have hope that there's this pushback to where we are now. And I think probably every generation probably does push back to what's happened previously. But I feel like this younger generation is very vocal about things that they want, and at some point we'll be listening to them fully, So,
right. Well, it's definitely one of the things that gives me some sort of hope is that I have 3 daughters, and trying to hear what they talk about with respect to equality and gender fluidity and all of these concepts that I don't know a ton about, but they're educating me. Can you talk a little bit about that? I mean, you're a mother, right? How many children do you have?
I have 2. I have 2, a boy and a girl, and they are also talking to me and educating me and pronouns and language and opportunities. And, I think my daughter, she was in college the years leading up to the pandemic. She graduated in May of 2020, which was a pretty hard time to graduate college, didn't get a graduation. But in the years previous to that, we were talking all sorts of conversations at the dinner table as she would come home from college about what she was learning. And, I think she opened my eyes before I started seeing some of those things. I feel like when George Floyd was killed, there was a lot of reckoning with our history as Americans. I felt it. And it wasn't my lived experience, but I was learning about who had lived these experiences and how real they had been for other Americans. So I feel like all of that is churning at the same time as maybe we're having, political divide. There's just a lot going on. I feel like we are living in interesting times. I know that's like isn't that a prayer or something people say to each other? And
It's a curse, I think, actually. May you live in interesting
Well,
times.
I guess we are, we are, whatever that looks like. So, and I guess part of my futuring this idea is every one of us gets a choice. That's a big lesson that I teach my audiences. It's a big lesson that I think I've learned in this last decade is we don't control everything happening. I think, when we stepped into a pandemic, I think that was really obvious how much we don't control. But I think we kind of have lived in this denial that we don't control so much in our world. So what can you control? What can you control in your day to day? You could walk out every day with a smile on your face and engage with the, the cashiers that you meet or the people you meet in the park, wherever you go. You always have the opportunity. And when you get treated badly or somebody yells at you or somebody isn't kind to you, how do you react? You could react in anger or you could pause and take a breath and try to react like that. So I guess I try to teach. And for me, this was a big aha, some science that comes out about this in terms of how happy you are. 40% of it is impacted by your own intentional actions. So a big piece of that pie is how you react to things. So I encourage people to think about things before they react and see if you can choose kindness. And I know for you and me, Michael, with something around kindness in our titles or what we call ourselves, it's like, you have to practice that every day. So it's actually not a bad thing,
Right. We have to practice it and we have to fall short so that that we still have work to do.
100%. Oh my goodness. My kids kept me so humble. I remember my son, probably age 7, I was doing my mitzvah project, trying to count acts of kindness. And one day I honked at someone after we dropped videos off at the Blockbusters. I know I'm dating myself, but remember when we had Blockbusters? And he said, Mom, why are you honking at her? She was driving slowly in a van in front of me and we were late for school. So I needed to get there. And he said, maybe she's talking to her son who's in the military, or maybe something's going on for her husband. He immediately had scenarios of why I could be kind. And I was just like, Solomon, you're right.
Wow.
So
It's really sweet. Yeah, the younger generation, that's where I keep my focus. There's so many different TV programs, podcasts, books, philosophers. They turn their ideas toward what's waiting for us in the afterlife. How do we act good? How do we avoid bad things so that we end up in a better place, right? But what I always try to focus on is what are we leaving behind? Because sure, maybe we go someplace, but I know for sure we're leaving stuff behind. And for our younger generation, I want it to be in good shape for them.
Yeah.
So you're talking an awful lot about framing and how to look at a situation where somebody is not being so kind to you. What are some of the tips and tricks that you teach to people to take that breath? And then how do you get people to reframe it? Because in that moment, somebody's yelling at you, you can feel like, I don't have time for this. I don't deserve this kind of treatment. I'm just going to yell back. How do you help people get out of that frame of mind?
Right. I would say pausing and grounding yourself and being present and thinking, this is not about me. This is about that person and they're having a tough day and they're yelling at me because I'm the person in front of them. And I would say it's also doing your own daily work so that you are not at your wit's end when that happens. You have a little grace. I teach people to have grace and empathy. I work a lot in senior living and in healthcare where it has been a hard several years for folks in those industries, where I was not an essential worker and I got to stay home for most of the beginning year of pandemic. They were out working. And so it has been a hard road. So, grace and empathy is everybody's holding something. Everybody's got something difficult, a burden on their shoulders, but you don't know. And I know there's a quote like that, but when you really stand in front of that person and they're angry with you, I remember we traveled, whenever it was fine to go traveling again. I remember we traveled into our state of Oregon and we were at a restaurant and somebody came over. The waitress was in tears and she was like, had been late coming over to our table. She said somebody had thrown silverware at her that day. And, of course, I hear that and I say, why are people traveling if they can't be patient? They know that, like, we've just come through a pandemic and probably the place is short-staffed. And what are you doing? Throwing something at another human being, And so we assured her we were not going to be those kind of clients or patrons. And, I feel like if you are not doing your own work, whether that means you're centering yourself every day, you're listening to something that's going to uplift you, you're going for a walk, you're doing your nature, whatever it is that you need, make sure you're doing that every day so you don't show up short fused, because then you'll have more grace for that other person. So I definitely, when I love yoga, I do meditation. I live in Oregon. We have gorgeous nature here. And I don't think of that as wasting time when I am making sure I fill my tank so that I'm filled up so that I can be out in the world. So that's definitely a piece of what I think people need to think about.
I love the self-care piece. I have a friend who says it's always easier to be kind as you're walking out of a spa.
I like that.
That is absolutely true. It's much harder when it's Friday afternoon and you've been fighting rush hour traffic for half an hour and you have half an hour left to go.
Sure. But then put on music. Okay, so that's the other thing. Listen to music. Take deep breaths. I mean, the thing I'm learning more and more about breath, because here it is, this thing that we walk around with every day. It's the thing that does itself. It keeps you keep breathing whether you're thinking about it or not. But when you get conscious of it, you can impact how it impacts you. So, learning some simple breath techniques, maybe in the middle of a rush hour and half an hour, you take a deep breath and you are listening to a great podcast or a book on tape or the music you love. And then you don't care that it takes you an hour to get home on that Friday afternoon. Maybe you think of it as a transition between work and your wonderful weekend you're about to have. I mean, I think part of that is perspective. And I don't sit in traffic for an hour every night. So I'm going to say that as somebody who that isn't my lived experience. And maybe I'm, talking out of turn because it isn't what it really feels like. But, change your situation. I guess if you're going to start honking at someone or getting road rage, that situation may not be serving you anymore. I don't know. So.
Maybe rethink some of your life choices. Yeah.
We're going small to like gigantic,
Right. So you mentioned breath work. Do you have breathing exercises that you teach or ones that you practice right now? And could you share one with our audience? Because I know that they're probably like, oh gosh, how do I do that?
So yeah, I do a loving kindness meditation almost at all of my keynotes now. I started doing that in about 2015 or 16. It felt like really important. Often people will say they've never done loving kindness meditation. That's really important. The box breath, 3 deep breaths is one of the ones that I teach also, but the box breath is one we could do right now. So a box breath is you breathe in for any amount of seconds. I usually do about 4 seconds in, you hold it for 4 seconds, you breathe out for 4 seconds, and you hold it for 4 seconds. So I can do it with us right now. I'll tell your listeners to sit on your chair. If you're sitting, I'm standing, but sit on your chair. Make sure your legs are uncrossed. Make sure you can feel your tush on the chair. If you want to close your eyes right now, feel free to do that. And make sure nothing is clenched. So I want us to start by breathing in, and I'll count us. Breathe in, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, breathe out, 2, 3, 4, and hold, 2, 3, 4, breathe in, 2, 3, 4, and hold, 2, 3, 4, breathe out, 2, 3, 4, and hold, 2, 3, 4. So that was just 2 cycles of a box breath, but you can lengthen the time you do it. You can do some more repetitions of it. But you can already tell, you can definitely feel, and I know when I lead this in my keynotes, I lead this in my keynotes, my loving kindness meditation, and I can tell everything that's been clenched, my shoulders up, and in that end of my keynote, I also get grounded and centered and breathe differently.
A part of what you just did that I really, really love is you've brought awareness, that sort of inward eye, that thoughtfulness about body, that thoughtfulness about just life itself, right? Breathing, how basic. But thank you for that. Now I feel great for the rest of the day. I know I'm gonna win.
Awesome. And that's the thing, is you can learn more about breath, and you're walking around all the time. You can do this at any moment. Just take a couple deep breaths. I have heard about nurses who do this before they enter a patient's room. Take 3 deep breaths. They touch the door. They realize they're leaving one room to enter another patient's room. There are physicalities that I think we've lost a lot of these touch points, unless you're really paying attention to this, that are ways you're going to be centering yourself so that you can be out in the world kinder,
Well, it feels like great kindness to ourselves in a society where we have microwaves and we have instant messages and we have electronic mail. We have these things that go so fast, to slow down.
Yeah, 100%. I don't have any of my books down here right now, but my nightstand is filled with books that I love, by teachers and authors who've come before me, who are helping me remember it's okay to take a down day. It's okay to lay around and read your book. It's okay to do anything that helps you refill your tank in ways. So, my self-care practice is going to look different from anybody else who's listening. It's what brings me joy. If it doesn't bring you joy to lay around and read a book, but you love being out, fishing, go do that, whatever it is. But I remind people, if you don't have yourself on the calendar really every day, like, what about an hour every day? And people are like, oh, an hour, how could I possibly find that time? But,
Right. Well, what's the purpose in even being alive if we don't take moments to remember that we're alive?
Totally,
right?
totally.
You talked about your self-care practice, and I know that this is one of the things we always recommend to our audience members. There are different ways of getting inspired. There are different ways of recharging. What are your ways of doing that? You go and inspire huge rooms filled with people. What do you, Linda Cohen, do to stay inspired?
So many things, Michael. It's not a one thing. I swim. I started roller skating. I garden. I do yoga. I walk. I pretty much walk probably every day. I have a dog that I love, so snuggling with him. I love to read books. I love listening to music, and music changes my mood if I'm having, it's usually jazz or classical. I don't listen to a lot of the news. I pick and choose how I intake my news, and I may be a little bit in the sand. There may be things I don't always know. I will tell you, mostly you hear everything. It all comes out. Yesterday I got a bing while I was making dinner because I'm on some list. That isn't the way I like to get my news. I really like to choose what I'm ingesting. I call it a media diet. I think every day, I write in my journal. I have a journal. I've had a journaling practice for years. And speaking for me is actually so much fun. I love being with audiences. I'm an extrovert, so people really feed my soul. And I've noticed after the pandemic, I'm a lot more exhausted when I'm in an audience. So I know that I take a nap if I need to. I am not afraid of taking a nap, even every day, Michael, if I need to in the afternoon, because I wake up early. I'm a very early riser. So sometimes by 3 o'clock, I need a little break and 15-minute reset. I meditate practically every day. So I have a lot of space in my life that is for the self-care so that I can do the work that I do at a high level. So
I love it. And you've mentioned books.
Yeah.
Are there any books that just come to mind that you reach for in that moment where you need inspiration or advice or
uplift? So Pocket Full of Miracles, and I'm going to get her name wrong. Her name is Joan. You're going to have to look it up. But Pocket Full of Miracles is a book I've had on my nightstand forever. Sarah Ben Braithwaite at Simple Abundance has been on my nightstand for years. Mark Nepo has a book that is also on my nightstand. I subscribe to some magazines, Mindful and Lion's Roar, that are fabulous, that really feed me. I love reading throughout the month. I don't always get to them right away, but that's always perfect. If I wake up in the middle of the night and I have some insomnia, I'll read one of my magazines that helps me talk about, philosophy, Buddhist philosophy and thinking. So, yeah. And I actually was at the beach in the springtime, and Joan, the Pocket Full of Miracles, I was at a used bookstore and I found a second book of hers that has become a new favorite. And I can't remember the title because I'm looking down. No, do I have it here? But I don't. It's about slowing down for busy people. And she writes Sylvia Boorstein is someone else I love. So yeah, I definitely I forgot to say I love baths. I take bubble baths or salt baths pretty regularly, a couple times a week, maybe once a week. I don't feel like you said going to the spa and you can be kind when you walk out of a spa. I feel like all of those little mini things I'm trying to do are so that I feel that exact same way. I don't have to go to the spa. It doesn't have to cost me hundreds of dollars. It can be the simple things I'm doing to make sure I'm filled up.
Well, even getting that sensation of touch. I mean, you say getting into a bubble bath. I mean, that is a very sensory experience.
Totally. Oh my God. And the candles. And I'll always have one of my books that I'm, an inspirational book. Oh, Tama Keeves is one of my favorite authors. She's got lots of books, I think 5 or so at this point. Yeah. And I had the pleasure of meeting her when I did my TED Talk, because she was doing a TED Talk that same time. And it was so exciting.
Oh,
I believe there are miracles happening, below what we see in our day-to-day world. And so I guess the Einstein quote, like, you could live your life as if everything is a miracle or as if nothing is a miracle. And I choose to believe it's a miracle,
Yeah. Well, I think it's miraculous that I had the opportunity to meet you. I think it was Tracy Hooper who connected the two of us. So shout out to Tracy, who does great work in supporting people in presenting themselves to the world the ways that they want to be. But you were also a very accomplished author yourself. We've talked briefly about one of your books. Can you tell us the names of both of your books and where we can find
The
them?
Economy of Kindness is book number 2. Amazon, still available there. Book number 1 is 1,000 Mitzvahs. I didn't bring it up to my desk. 1,000 Mitzvahs, How Small Acts of Kindness Can Heal, Inspire, and Change Your Life. That one may be harder to find. We need to get it back out in the world. It was published by a publishing house, and I've gotten the rights back. So I got to make sure it's being reproduced so I can get it back up on Amazon. So you might be able to find an old copy, though, at a used bookstore.
Yeah. I would love browsing through used books.
They're fun. Oh, and seeing your own book at a bookstore. My book was at Barnes & Noble on Fifth Avenue in New York City when it first came out. And oh my gosh, as a first-time author, it was the most exciting miracle ever. So
It feels amazing. So, but yeah, no, I encourage everybody in the audience. We're going to put all this in the show notes. So look there. If you're not sure how to spell Linda Cohen's name, or you can't find her immediately, please definitely reference those show notes. Very quickly, what are the big projects that you are working on that you want the world to know about? Charitable organizations that you want people to donate to? Just anything that you want to talk about?
Oh my goodness, such a big question, an end question that's so big. I want people not to donate to my charity. I don't have a nonprofit. I want people to think about what feeds their soul. And I want them to say, it doesn't matter if it's $5 a month. It doesn't matter if it's a couple dollars in a little jar. When my dad died and I took on that mitzvah project, my dad was the one who taught me how to cook. My mom did not know how to cook. So I have all these memories of learning how to cook with my dad. And the 1,000th mitzvah, all of them had just been whatever they were. But the 1,000th mitzvah, I had a mastermind group, and one of the women said, you should do something special to celebrate this. It was a 2.5-year project. You really should do something special. So I did a fundraiser for the local food bank in my town, and it got written up in the local paper, my Oregonian, and a great article. And so people showed up with bags that had my dad's name on them, who I didn't know, who just wanted to support what we were doing. We had thousands of pounds of food delivered that day. So, for me, that felt like something really impactful. It's connected me with my dad. I love to eat. He taught me how to eat, so do whatever really is meaningful for you. And I'm sure in your community and your listeners are going to have something they're really passionate about. And I would say, I would encourage them to do that. because I also teach about the giving and receiving piece of kindness in my workshops. And it's often easier to be the giver. And so you're asking us, what can we do to give? But I also encourage people to learn how to receive, which is hard. And I have discovered that most people really struggle with receiving kindness. And yet, if you think about a circle, the givers have to be able to give to someone. So learning how to receive a kindness is also part of a human experience. And if you've walked in any difficult times in your life, you know that when you receive from another person, there's often huge amount of buoying. That's what helps you get through. If you've had a loss or something challenging and other people are there for you, you really feel it at that time. So
yes, I completely concur with that. There are moments where it is very hard to reach out for help, to admit that you actually need somebody to come to your aid. But man, do it. It's
in my future world of kindness, it won't be as hard to receive.
Okay, I like that. Okay, I want to be in your future, because there are definitely moments when I know I need help, and I'm just, it's 2 a.m. and I've been working on something, and I'm at my wit's end, and then I finally admit that I need some help on something.
Okay, good. And ask.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So Linda, how can people reach you if they want to get some more wisdom, or they want to have a conversation with you, they want to hire you to be a speaker?
That's awesome.
How would they
Love
do
that?
that?
I have my website, lindacohenconsulting.com. I'm on LinkedIn, Linda M. Cohen. Love to connect with whoever might be interested. Love to have a conversation about how I could serve you and help you and your teams, your employees, inspire you, motivate you, help teach you some tools. So thank you. And thanks, Michael. It's been wonderful to have time with you today. I really loved it.
Oh, I feel like it's been a gift for me. So thank you very much for being on the show. And now for the great news about the Human Summit and Linda Cohen. Linda has agreed to be our anchor position keynote speaker, wrapping up the event on November 13th in style. You will not want to miss the Human Summit, with Linda being the person who brings it all to a great conclusion. This episode's Kindness Challenge. Choose one small intentional act of kindness today, like helping a neighbor in memory of someone you love, just like Linda's original 1,000 Mitzvahs project. Share it with someone else, inviting them to join that ripple. And remember, even one short gesture can transform your day and deepen your connections. Want to stay inspired so you can stay kind? Read Linda Cohen's The Economy of Kindness to unlock how genuine compassion can enhance organizational health and the bottom line. Read 1,000 Mitzvahs to remind you that simple, small acts hold power to heal and inspire and reshape our culture. Thanks again for listening to our Future is Kind podcast, a podcast in search of a kinder future. Go out there and do something kind.